Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions. And I'd like to introduce my guest to you today, my brand new friend, Trina Celeste Limpert. Yes?
Yes.
Let me tell you a little bit about Trina. She is the CEO of Rise Next, an AI consultancy focused on workforce upskilling and responsible AI strategy and readiness. She's a best-selling author of the book Orchestrating Life-Work Harmony. And as a public speaker and corporate trainer, she helps individuals and organizations find balance while embracing innovation. Trina is also the co-founder of the nationally recognized nonprofit techmoms.org, which empowers women to transition into technology careers. Named one of Utah's most influential women, Trina is passionate about human-centered leadership, emotional intelligence, and the future of work. Beyond her professional life, she's a proud mother to 3 boys and 5 stepchildren, bringing her insights on harmony and mental wellness to both her home and her leadership philosophy. 8 kids, that's...
Yeah.
You're going to be busy all the time with those insights that you have, right?
There's always something going on, always.
Thank you so much for being here. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Tell me about just your interest in mental health. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's a personal one. I think everybody if they're not, should have an interest in mental health and wellness, right? And I think there's been a lot of navigating that. But I grew up with this being very prevalent, but not understanding it. It was something that I think was brushed under the rug a lot within my own home. Having my great-grandmother committed suicide. She jumped off a bridge. I had a grandfather that committed suicide and shot himself. My mother has attempted, and it's been something that we just never still spoke about it. Right. It was more of a stated as a fact, but then just not discussed or not really addressed head on or understanding what it was or what was creating that. And it's just been part of my upbringing in my life and not something that I had really ever spoke about or anything. My whole life, it was just like, you stated like, oh yeah, that happened. Not really reflecting on the deepness of the tragedy that my family has gone throughout the years. And there's been a few things these last few years that really brought it on more prevalent for me. One being my father. When I was writing my book on orchestrating life work harmony, my father was going through cancer, and I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with him as I drove him back and forth to radiation and to different doctor appointments and, in the ICU. And it really was a gift to be able to start to have these conversations. And I remember we were driving, they lived in Saratoga Springs here, and we were driving down to Provo Hospital. And on the journey, I just happened to ask him, why didn't we ever talk about what was going on with Mom? All those years of watching her, we all just kind of, I don't know, just didn't address it or felt like you couldn't address it or you couldn't talk about it. And he's like, well, you just were trained to not talk about it. And he did say, he's like, we probably should have. It probably would have helped her more, right? And my mom is still living. My father passed away. But even now, she deals with a lot of mental health and wellness. And it's one of those things that's just been like, okay, we know it's real. We know it's happening, but we just don't talk about it, right? That's how I was raised. And where it became very real for me was about 4 years ago. I was sleeping, and my younger son came in at 2:00 in the morning. And he said, Mom, Dad's on the phone. I'm like, your dad's on the phone? My ex-husband, right? It's 2 a.m. And I get on the phone, and he said, Trina, Bridger, my middle son, is in the hospital. He was going to take his life. And all things stop at that moment. And I actually said, no, he's not. He's asleep downstairs. I tucked him in. I remember.
He was living in your house.
He was living at my house at the time. He was 15 years old. And I said, no, he's downstairs sleeping. Like, I just couldn't accept that this was really happening in my own life. Right. And He said no, he's at the hospital. He had called the 1-800 hotline, and they told him to walk to the hospital that's a few blocks from my home. So I mean, at that point, everything in my life shifted, right? My education in this space, and fortunately, he picked up that phone. He was a big book reader, right? And I think that maybe he lost himself in the books and had shut. I just thought, oh, he's just enjoying. He just kind of, he was always my easy one, right? It's always, you think, oh, he's just okay. You don't. I still, even at this moment, can't comprehend this is really something that we've had to learn through and grow through. And just that experience of getting to the hospital and seeing him laying there and just completely shut off, like curled up in a ball and wouldn't talk to me. And we, fortunately, after a lot of hard work and trying to get in, we got him in with Huntsman, and he spent some time there. But I mean, it's just such a hard process. I mean, going in and they're telling you, okay, make sure that there's no strings in his pants so he can't hang himself, or do you have guns in the home? Like these, you're in such a trauma state yourself. And, you know, we fortunately got him the help that he needed. But as that journey of us figuring out how to communicate, how to be able to work together as we went through this process of him understanding suicidal ideation and his own mental health, and my own got lost in that. And I found myself waking up every morning after we finally got him home, and I would wake up in a panic, and I would run down the stairs and I'd knock on the door to make sure he was still alive. And I did that every day for like 3 months of, is he still alive? Is he still alive? You know, that pain of my own trauma and going through that. And I had to get my own care, and I had to realize that I had experienced through that my own trauma of not knowing, you know, is he going to be okay? And can I be okay not knowing that? And that took a long process for me to go through and really understand that I'd gone through and experienced a trauma that I needed to deal with. And I finally sought care myself. And I remember talking to my counselor, and she's like, what is it that's happening? And I'm like, I feel like my fear is keeping him alive. That somehow if I wasn't afraid, if I wasn't running down those stairs, if I wasn't in a complete panic all the time, somehow something was going to happen to him. And so, I mean, it's a long answer to your question, but through a lot of life history, you know, this is very important to me, and being able to allow people to start talking about it. And I'm so grateful you're running this podcast, honestly.
Thank you.
Very needed.
How's Bridger now?
He's good. But even today, he, you know, we had a conversation about how he's doing, years of therapy, years of working on this, him understanding his OCD behaviors that are creating these tendencies to really ruminate on these harsh visions almost that he was having. He learned how to manage them. He did a lot of behavioral work. We did get him, he'd been on antidepressants. We got him off of them, but we had a conversation about him going back on today. I think the biggest thing is, again, it's him being able to be comfortable talking to me and knowing it's okay, and just saying, you know, how are you doing on a scale of 1 to 5? Like, we don't go into the details, and that's something we had to agree on, is that I'm going to have challenges if he shares what he sees. That's hurting me. And so we've learned how to communicate together. But I mean, even this morning, we had a conversation again. You know, it's ongoing. I wrote about this in my book, and one of the things that I found is really incredible and grateful for people that reach back out to me as they read about this is understanding that this isn't just something you fix. Their gratitude for saying, thank you for acknowledging this, that this is happening, first of all, but then that it's not like, oh, we're going to fix the problem and it just goes away. It doesn't. It's a lifelong journey that we're continually moving through all the time. Well,
thank you for sharing that for 2 reasons. Number one, just because It's amazing to hear the vulnerability, and I know that it can be difficult to say. Number two, you're one of Utah's most influential women, right? Okay, so and I'm not saying that flippantly. What I'm saying is there's so many people out there that think that the people that are successful, they just don't have any problems, right? They don't have any challenges.
Absolutely not.
And it's completely the opposite.
It is.
But when they think that, when they have that false narrative in their mind, then they think, well, then I can't be successful.
Yeah.
I can't make it to the level that these other women are at because I have a son who's suicidal, or I have a son who has anxiety, or I'm divorced, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
You know, in any number of life challenges that a person might face. And so I think when successful people disclose their histories, I think that's amazing, because then people go, oh, all of a sudden they think, oh, then I could do that as well. Right?
Yeah.
It's so good.
I've found it interesting as I've started to be more vocal and me sharing these stories. It's not the people you would expect that come back and say, these are executives. These are CEOs of companies that are coming to me and saying, yeah, I deal with that too. And feeling like they can open up in a safe place with me because we share a lot of the same experiences that, you know, whether it was their family or even themselves.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of executives that deal with mental health or depression or, you know, and they just push through it. And I think it's just allowed them to say, okay, I've got a safe space, and they'll say something. And I've appreciated that they've done that.
And that can go such a long way in business if those business leaders can share those stories appropriately with the people that they're leading. Oh, it can make so much difference, because again, it's that same thing. Everyone feels like, well, no one has those problems. Only I have those problems.
Yeah.
And everyone is having these problems to some degree or another, right?
Yeah.
And it varies from day to day.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a difficult problem. Sometimes it's not as bad. So tech moms.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. And then you say it's to help. It helps in a number of things, but confidence and getting back into the workplace.
Number one. Yeah.
So what's the deal? Why is it that women are struggling to confidently enter the workplace? Because women are amazing. Like,
I know. I wish they knew that about themselves. There's so many answers to that question. It's going to be hard to navigate it, right? Like a lot of times when I'm doing podcasts or people are interviewing me, they're like, what's the one thing we can do? And I'm like, it's like 100 things,
exactly.
Right? It's really hard to say, we do this, all things change.
Right.
I wish I had the answer as to why women specifically have more challenges with confidence. I don't know where that's coming from. You know, if I could, I would be like, okay, well, let's fix that,
right?
Exactly. Like going back to like, well, let's just fix it.
Right.
But that is the number one thing. I really don't like the term imposter syndrome. I wish we would just get rid of that. I think it's a way of explaining, well, women just deal with, like, no, everybody has doubt.
Exactly.
Everybody does, right? Like we were just talking about, executives everybody deals with doubt. There's not a person I've met in my lifetime that has not.
Right.
Because I think that like isolates them, saying, oh, we're different, there's something wrong with me. And it's just not true. There's nothing wrong with anyone.
Right.
We're all coming from where we're coming from. And I think that's the most powerful thing. The work that we do at Tech Moms is to help individuals. We will work with anyone. It's not just women. Our only requirement is you have a high school diploma. Things we focus on, though, are primarily the barriers that are there for women and specifically moms, right? Where we don't have the same financial means. We don't have childcare. We don't have the community. Like if you've been out of the workforce for 20
like
years.
Those gaps in employment, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
How are you going to come back and you don't have a natural network to pull from? And so the community piece is really big. But then also just saying you can do it. We bring in other professionals that have been in the industry that are working in the jobs and careers they're going into. There's a huge power in the see it, be it model. Oh, she did it. I can do it. It flips a switch like no other. The other is just somebody tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, have you ever thought about going into tech? Have you ever thought? And they go, oh, somebody saw me and they saw something in me. Yes. Let me lean into that. And it starts to spark. I call it like the spark to the inferno, right? It's like people that step forward and go, okay, I can do it. I can do it in a safe space, which is another key piece. That's why you have to have organizations like ours, not just go into higher education where you've got 20-year-olds that don't have the same life experiences. It's hard to relate and you just don't feel like you belong there. We create this space where it's like, okay, I can come from wherever I'm at. It does not matter whether you've been out of the workforce for 20 years or you're a VP at a bank, right? We've had doctorates go through and just say, I just want to switch my career and I want to tie into this community. And it's powerful once they get in and they say, oh, okay, I can do this. And our mission isn't to teach tech. Our mission is to teach individuals to learn how to learn. That's what we're doing, because tech moves fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's going to be
Whatever
different
you teach
next
today,
week.
yeah, exactly.
Let alone,
Right.
like, I can't even tell you how many systems I've designed, sold, implemented, in my 30 years in tech. But it's really going, okay, I can learn now. That confidence of saying, oh, I can just figure out I can figure things out. And right now with AI, it's so fast. You're like, oh, I can learn anything now. And just knowing that confidence to say, I've got like little AI assistant now that can help me as I make these transitions. I've got a community that's going to support me. I can go to them with whatever's happening. I sit, like, the threads that we get, we run a Slack channel to run all of our communities, and just the success stories that we see are just incredible of these massive life transformations. That's why I say we're not doing tech careers. We're doing life transformation. And it's not just that individual. It's not just that one woman. It's her and her children. You want to solve K through 12 STEM issues? Get the moms in tech. Who do you think is changing the world, right? It's the women. Yeah. And so that's really what we're focused on, is really serving this highly educated resource that we have that's just been underserved for way too long.
Yeah. I love that idea of the spark to the inferno, and just the, like you said, the tapping on the shoulder and saying, hey, you could do this.
Great at this.
Exactly.
And they go, oh, I would be. It just plants these seeds that just, and then you just give them a little support and they take off.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think doubt is universal. Yeah. I think that what men do is we just ignore it, or we hide it better or something. Yeah. I think maybe there's an authenticity that might be a little more natural to women, and so they're like, look, no, I own what is going on with me, right? Yeah. And if I doubt myself, then I own that, and I kind of express that. Where men are like, no, we're better at building these walls and having these masks. Maybe that's it, because everyone faces it.
Everybody.
But part of it is, and like you said, the imposter syndrome. I agree, because I mean, if it's a syndrome, it's an epidemic, because we all have it.
We all have it. I know, exactly. Right? We all
it's
are.
A universal thing. Yeah.
I'm like, let's just get rid of that.
Right.
Done with that one.
Well, and because when you do something, you're actually doing it. How can you be an imposter?
Yeah, you're actually doing the work.
Right, because if you're a CEO, then you're a CEO.
You're CEO.
Exactly. You're actually being the CEO.
Yeah.
I guess the only way you could really be an imposter would be like to sit in the CEO's office but not be the CEO.
Yeah, and not
just to somehow sneak in there, right?
Yeah, just somehow.
That'd be a true imposter.
I know some of those, actually, by the way. Like, I'm not sure why you're in that seat, but okay.
Oh, I love that. Just helping increase confidence. And I agree that one of the best ways to do that, like you said, see it, be it, is so important, is just bring in people who have walked that path before, so they can see that. Yeah. And just having people around them telling them, you're great, you can do this.
You've got it. Yeah.
Because there's so much natural talent out there.
Yeah. It's the comparison is the thief of joy. I know you'd been asking a little bit on like social media. That's the issue, is it's comparison, right?
Yeah.
We limit ourselves because we're comparing ourselves to something that's not even real.
Right.
And I think, with me being vulnerable and talking about my own challenges, talking about the things I struggle with, it does make people go, oh, well, then I can do that too. And knowing that it's not a perfect line. It's not, oh, I just was born a software developer. I was just born a CEO. No, there was struggle in there. And lean into the struggle, knowing that if I can go and do something and fail at it, I'm going to learn. It's never a wasted effort. You're going to learn as you go through that process.
Yeah. There should be a requirement on social media that we have to post our worst days as well.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just because that's the problem, is that you see everyone's best stuff, and not only their best stuff, their Photoshop stuff, right?
AI generated now,
exactly.
Right? That's what's scary is
it's false at its heart. We have to be able to look at that and say, you either use it responsibly, or if we can't avoid the comparison, then just avoid it altogether, right? If you
I'll
can't
go
handle
through
that,
phases of that where I'll be like, all right, I'm feeling it. And I'll do, okay, I'm no social media this week or sometimes a month. I'll just be like, and even with the news right now, I'll be like, I'm not watching it.
Yeah, I know.
I've got to just disconnect for a while
Yeah.
and I think it's the awareness of your own emotional state and trying to figure out what's creating that. And that's what I write about in my book is it's not just one thing that's creating disharmony in your life. It could be coming from, and I try and tailor it down to 5 areas in your life that really trying to simplify the process and giving a model for finding harmony and for what I've equated to, I always like to go back to stories, right? So I grew up on a small farm, so I always go back to my family. My parents had these massive gardens, so I would play in the gardens, and we had goats. So I, of course, have to talk about goat analogies. But you're looking at your life like a garden that you're trying to bloom, right? And in your garden, you get to design what that looks like. And I think a lot of people, and especially the women that I work with, let everybody else decide
Right.
what their garden's going to look like, and then they're not fulfilled, and then they're having depression or feeling out of harmony because now
Mhm.
somebody else has designed their life and they're not true to themselves. And so I call it the life first model. It's about us needing to take everything going on and saying, no, what do I want to do? And that can be really a hard process if you've always lost yourself in the sacrifice to everyone else. And so really doing this life first, let me put me at the center of my garden. And being centered on ourselves is not self-centered.
No.
It's very critical in finding happiness and, all of these different harmonious aspects of our life. And so I went back to 6th grade and science, and it's like, what does it take for a plant to grow? And I kind of equate it to the same thing in our life, right? And so it's light, air, water, nutrition, and space.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I map it to is light is our relationships. We can have positive or very negative relationships. Right. And so do we have good or bad? Is that going to create light or take away light in our lives? You have air, which is like our financial wellness. Like, are we financially? Because it's hard to grow something or build if you're just struggling with the day-to-day.
Right.
So how do we invest in ourselves?
Put food on the table.
Yeah.
It's hard to actualize.
Like financial freedom is very real, and sometimes we ignore that. And then we get into a state where it's like, okay, I'm struggling all the time, and it can create depression and other challenges. And then your work and career, you need some way of being fulfilled. You need to be active in some way, whether you're in the workplace or community involvement, whatever that is. But space is a big one. Do we find space for ourselves? There's so many times I've talked to individuals and I'll be like, what are your hobbies? And they're like, just stop dead. They can't even answer what their hobbies are. And they've just given every day to everybody else. But I think the number one out of all of that is the nutrition piece. And I call that the fertile soil of mental health. We need to start from a solid foundation of mental health and wellness. And when you don't have that, and I call them the weeds, right, that grow up in our garden, nothing else is going to grow if you're not weeding those negative thoughts or the doubts. It's like fear, doubt, shame, guilt, all of those things, you've got to weed them out. And being from Utah, I have to call it chuck it. You have to chuck it, the weed, pluck it and chuck it, or flip it so you can replant it into something positive. So I use that narrative. And just a funny story about as I was launching this model, I started sharing it with some of the women. And I was at lunch and I got a call. I shared this with her, and her 2 kids were with us at lunch. And she called me the next week and she's like, Trina, my son got called into the principal's office. And I had shared the idea of goats that consume us, right? I'm like, you got to invite in the gardeners that bloom and keep out the goats that consume, right? That's my little tagline. And she's like, the principal is like, yeah, he came in and he told me he had a goat in his garden. And she's like, I had no idea. He didn't know what he was talking about. And I started going, oh, we sat him down. He had a bully. He was being bullied, but he was like, I got a goat in my garden that's like taking, trying to consume me. And he was like, I got to keep the goat out of my garden. It was pretty cute. So I might write a children's book at some point, but I think if you can get it to the children's level, you can get it to any professional
Absolutely.
level. Right? Keep out the goats.
I love that. Well, and I love just what you're doing to help inspire confidence in people. Confidence is a rare commodity anymore. And yet I think we're also deserving of it. If we just stop to take a look at what we're doing, and especially because all of us are coming from some sort of difficulty or trauma.
Oh, yeah.
And yet here we are.
You were
right,
still going.
doing amazing things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that has to inspire confidence at some level, but I think you're right. Maybe it requires another person to just tap you on the shoulder
say, "You
or
got
ignite
this,"
and
or-
say, you can do
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
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 When I went through a divorce and after I got, finally separated and was moving forward, it's real easy to get caught up in the things that have happened to us,
Yep.
right? And you can always go back and be like, oh, I can't believe that happened, or that person did that to me, whatever it is, whether it's divorce or somebody harms you in some way or something happens. It's really easy to get your head going in that model. And I had found this quote that I put on my wall. And so when I wake up in the morning and when I go to sleep at night, I stuck it on the wall, and it was talking about the fact you cannot go back and change the path that got you to where you are, but you can change the path on where you're going.
Yeah.
And that ability to set the vision for your life and where you want to go and your purpose and aligning those and keeping focused on forward looking rather than just always going back. That's the confidence we try and instill within our students, is that this is forward looking work. We know you got to clean up things, or
Sure.
things are happening, or things come up all the time. But the more you can set that vision for where they could go, what they could do, what they could become, and they hold on to that instills so much confidence. And so if you don't have a life vision mission statement, you should.
Yes.
And just always go back to your why you're doing what you're doing.
I love that. So if people want to learn more about Tech Moms, where do they go?
They go to tech-moms.org.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, Trina, you're doing such great work. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing your story and then talking about what you're doing to help others. It's making a difference. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.